United Nations is synonymous with creating world peace. And clearly countries in the region, in the subcontinent, such as India, Pakistan, across the region, in China, in Central Asia, in the developing world elsewhere, and from the Middle East, they tend to feel that the impact of United Nations from the Security Council resolutions, how much of a crucial and critical role that it has been able to put into effect as far as resolving countries' grievances.
Good afternoon, bonjour, buenos dias, ni hao, dobry dzień. Those were the 6 United Nations official languages. I appreciate you. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today. But the United Nations is very special exercise, very special thing, very special simulation of how the young people see or would like to see the United Nations to really work. And we have to admit that although we call this century, 21st century of progress and development, we still see the world divided by conflicts, by misunderstandings, by disparity, by other issues that are challenging all of us every day. And I'm extremely proud and honored and grateful to all of you.
This is a very big forum in which we learn from each other. We can learn from the students because they are young and they have fresh ideas and they are made for the future of Pakistan. And you should be proud of your country because Pakistan is a very important country in the world. So it deserves your efforts and it deserves your vibration and your energy. And the United Nations is usually a very successful illustration of dialogue, the biggest forum of dialogue in the world. And we should, as member states, encourage the United Nations because by dialogue and by finding consensus, we can avoid a lot of conflicts in the world. So multilateral diplomacy is very important, and coming from a country that got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015, we know how much dialogue and exchanging thoughts, exchanging positions, and coming on common ground between countries, how much it is important and how many conflicts the United Nations avoided in its history.
First, I would like to draw attention to the fact that foreign relations impact on our daily lives. We cannot ignore them. If we ignore them, we're doing it at our own peril. How do they impact on our daily lives? Well, they impact because whether we like it or not, international regulations rule the way we act, the way we trade, the way we deal with other countries. So foreign relations play a very important role. And I say this because usually foreign relations don't figure very high in the agenda of the everyday common man, in Pakistan or in Argentina for that matter. If you fight an election, foreign affairs does not stand very high in the agenda, and it should stand. So it is important, therefore, to know how to live in this world. And for us, developing countries, to live in this world, it is absolutely essential to recognize that the multilateral framework is the only one that will ensure that our interests are taken into account.
There are two things that you have to learn in the United Nations or the diplomacy training. One is intervention, the other is lobbying. So the intervention, how do you seek intervention? Perhaps when there is a violation or when there is an infringement of fundamental right or when something goes wrong or some community has been affected, how you can take it to the UN and how can make it an issue and how it could be how it could be articulated in the United Nations, and that is what is called intervention. So you must, I hope, will learn in this process the art of intervention. Very important aspect in the diplomacy training.
So the other day I was at a conference in Dubai. I would just like to briefly highlight. There was a great professor. He was the ex-education minister of United Kingdom. At the end of his speech, he says, Apple, which happens to be the world's largest company in the world, you know, among the top 20, the multi-trillion-dollar enterprises. I think Apple happens to be the only trillion-dollar enterprise in the world in 2018. So they say Apple's recruitment criteria is they do not recruit and hire people who need management. It's a very powerful statement. So that requires that you guys, the youth of 21st century, when you graduate, you ought to be possessing a skill set which makes you complete.
To all of those who are competing to win an award and are wondering if this is first time and they're wondering what they need to do to win an award, I would like to quote something Winston Churchill once said regarding diplomacy. A true diplomat is a lady or a gentleman who can tell another person to go to hell in such a manner that the other person looks forward to making the journey. Now we're going to move on to our first committee, which is the Disarmament International Security Committee, in which we're discussing preventing financing, arms trade, and enhancing international regulations to prevent terrorism. And to explain the topic further and the committee proceedings, I would like to invite the chair, Itiza, onto the podium.
I believe, for me, the purpose of United Nations was to have peace. It was not to have wars. But if I see the history, I see after United Nations, if we see Iran, if we see Iraq, if we see Palestine, if we see Libya, if we see Syria, we see wars, destructions everywhere. And even after United Nations. So the ultimate reason for United Nations was to keep peace. But unfortunately, I don't see this in this era. And if we see other problems, if we talk about Kashmir, if we talk about Myanmar, such resolutions, such things, UN is not playing their positive role. So the main purpose, that was the epitome of United Nations, was to keep peace. But unfortunately, after United Nations, there is more war, there is more destruction. Actually, they have made a hegemony. Now, because of United Nations, the big countries, US, they are taking benefit, they are taking advantage, and different minor countries are unable to even do anything on that relative terrorism facts that are even supported by UN because they have not been portraying anything. So my question is, the main reason of United Nations for me was to keep peace, but unfortunately I don't feel.
Excellent.
So what is your view on it?
Yes, if you look into the Constitution of United Nations, after the World War II, when half of the world was destroyed, and then that laid the inception of United Nations, and a very valuable aspect, the countries and the destruction which we see in the world around us is absolutely mind-boggling.
There is a lack of belief or a lack of commitment from some countries in the values and the principles of the United Nations. I think that these countries should believe more in the United Nations mechanism to assure security and peace in the world. And as I said before, we should, the mechanism of the United Nations, its institutions, understand each other, more understanding. We should respect our differences. We should also protect our interests, but we should not also forget the other interests of other countries. This is what it is, according to me. This is the lack of understanding between the countries which are part of the United Nations.
But when you look at the purposes and the objectives of the United Nations, there are 4 points, of which 2 concern peace, and then the third one, which is very important, says to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character, and in promoting and encouraging respect of human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinctions as to race, sex, language, or religion.
To all of those who are competing to win an award and are wondering if this is first time and they're wondering what they need to do to win an award. I would like to quote something Winston Churchill once said regarding diplomacy. A true diplomat is a lady or a gentleman who can tell another person to go to hell in such a manner that the other person looks forward to making the journey. Now we're going to move on to our first committee, which is the Disarmament International Security Committee, in which we're discussing preventing financing, arms trade, and enhancing international regulations to prevent terrorism. And to explain the topic further and the committee proceedings, I would like to invite the chair, Itiza, onto the podium.
Actually, economic dependence of women, they tend to suffer quite a lot as compared to other genders. And for a nation to progress, it is absolutely important for women to be granted equal rights. Furthermore, we have been moving towards a resolution that we truly believe that it is very important for us to discuss the causes first so that we can combat the actual problem by looking into the main